Hello and welcome to another anime lore and theory video. I'm Shergog, your host, and today we are going to take a closer look at what Renner thinks about the most important inhabitants of the Great Tomb of Nazarick, and of course about the Great Tomb itself, and why she had some reservations, even though she carried her betrayal out near perfectly. But before we're going to take a closer look at any of this, let me quickly thank my Patreons for supporting this channel, as well as say thanks to all users of the YouTube thanks function for making one-time donations. And with that said, let's get to the topic at hand. The Golden Princess Renner Chadillon Riel Vaislev quite impressively proved that not everything that glitters is gold. However, Renner did something incredibly risky. Not only did she betray her own country and her own family to attain eternal life, and at least biologically become immortal, but she also betrayed her entire species, because to obtain this immortality, and in order to be with her childhood love Climb, she had to become a demon, thereby betraying the humanity she still possessed. And she also sacrificed millions in the process, both on a strategic and on a deeply personal level. Though betrayal is an ugly word, let's call it goal-oriented personal development. Much better. Naturally, the question arises, what did Renner think of the monsters that contacted her out of the blue and wanted to recruit her to their own side? And let's start with the Great Tomb of Nazarick itself. Even though we don't have that much information, we know that Renner had no problems joining this layer of monsters and demons, even though she knew that as a human, she would likely face a more challenging position to hold. Nevertheless, she found the risk-reward ratio worthwhile, at least worthwhile enough to sacrifice everything she had up to that point in order to join Nazarick. In other words, she risked her entire family, her own life, Climb's life to an extent, and the lives of every countryman for a goal-oriented personal development. In short, she at least had some degree of basic trust, and was able to assess her two main contacts, Demiurge and Albedo, well enough to enter into this deal. In return, Demiurge was downright fascinated by this human woman and what she was doing, so much so that he let her devise most of the plan to conquer the kingdom of Ainz, her own homeland, only making a few small corrections together with Albedo. In other words, Demiurge and Albedo also had enough trust in her to allow Renner to draw up the key plans for this invasion, fully aware that it was against her own countrymen and that she was devilishly smart. And Renner had no problem with no longer being human and becoming a demon as well. And again she also betrayed Climb, her great love, completely, making him believe that the Sorcerer King had forced her to become a demon, and that he would have to pass several loyalty tests to remain with her. In other words, Climb too had to fulfill the requirements to become an imp, so that both Renner and Climb could biologically become immortal and be together forever. And this pursuit of her own goal and desires, regardless of what other humans thought, regardless of her own society, this complete self-centeredness, which didn't cross over into narcissism but remained rational and logically consistent, this entirely self-focused behavior, this calculated selfishness, was something that Albedo found inspiring, because typically she despised and hates outsiders. Nevertheless, Albedo perceived Renner as a heteromorph in spirit, and since both were immortal and, let's say, tragically in love, they had a common ground to get to know each other on a personal level and exchange thoughts. Basically, Albedo had a kindred heart, someone who has the same deep longing for a certain other, and they potentially, if Albedo plays her cards right, which again is not entirely likely considering her plans of betraying basically the entire Great Tomb of Nazarick, but if she would play her cards right, she could talk to Renner for eternity about her great love. Because again, not only is Renner infatuated with Climb, but Albedo also has her own ambitions regarding Ainz. Still, it must be mentioned that neither of them fully trusted each other. Renner was literally shadowed from the moment she entered the service of the Great Tomb of Nazarick, as in a shadow demon was assigned to her, accompanying her all of the times, not only to protect her from enemies, but also to immediately punish any betrayal. And Renner, up until the very end, suspected that there was always a possibility that Albedo would betray and deceive her. Because despite everything, Renner was keenly aware that Albedo is still a succubus and a demon, and that her kind takes a devilish delight, scratch that, an absolutely devilish pleasure, in leading people astray with their desire, making them forsake all morals for riches, power and fame, and the fulfillment of their heart's desires. Only then, after the person has betrayed all of their friends, acquaintances and relatives, as well as their own ideals and humanity itself, would this demon, this succubus, would Albedo dangle the fulfillment of the heart's desire like a carrot before a donkey, only to then deceive them right before they reach their goal and take away everything they had and watch them despair. And again, this was a legitimate fear Renner had when she knelt before Albedo in the Great Tomb of Nazarick. But luckily for Renner this wasn't the case, and Albedo simply wanted to ensure that Renner would give 100% of her capabilities, using her intellect fully to serve the Great Tomb of Nazarick, because she noticed that Renner had been holding back. And perhaps to keep something in reserve for any potential negotiations, if this become necessary from her perspective. But now that things are settled, Albedo wanted her to give everything she had to Nazarick. And again, her not giving it her all had not been unnoticed by Albedo. In other words, the alliance between the two wasn't as stable as one might think. It was still very much a business deal. However, once it was made clear to Renner that Nazarick expected 100% performance, she did indeed get what she always wanted. But as mentioned, Renner was aware of the risk up until the very end, and her relationship with Albedo wasn't as honest or friendly as one might initially think. It had another layer to it, because neither fully trusted the other. Which brings us to Ainz Ooal. As I have mentioned in other videos, Ainz views Renner as a potential threat, an outsider with a razor-sharp mind, not bound by the typical loyalty of the NPCs, to the Great Tomb of Nazarick and to himself as a supreme being. So she might be the one most likely to see through his facade, and to realize that Ainz isn't the brilliant master strategist he pretends to be, but rather just about as smart as Climb. And this prompted Ainz to distance himself from her and take a vacation in the Elf Kingdom, for example. So he is legitimately scared, at least to an extent, about Renner and her capabilities. And Renner, on the other hand, didn't manage to see through the facade of Ainz Ooal. How could she? Everyone around her tells her how smart Ainz is, and these people are Albedo and Demiurge for the most part. So to assume that these geniuses have been deceived by Ainz, or to suspect that this powerful ruler is somehow foolish, would be extremely illogical from Renner's own perspective. Moreover, his appearance in the throne room of Rolente and his battle against Climb were understood by Renner not only as an honor, but also as a warning. Ainz demonstrated that he was in absolute control, that he commanded the gigantic army outside the gates, and that all these extremely powerful and monstrous beings were personally loyal to him. It was a flex from her perspective. And this king, who had complete control over such incredibly powerful creatures, stood also in stark contrast to her father, who failed to preserve the kingdom of Riestais, and whose leniency and weakness contributed significantly to the division of the court between royalists and aristocrats. He, Renner's father, couldn't even keep his own family in order. So in other words, Renner as a rational thinker saw in Ainz the obvious ruler of the Great Tomb of Nazarick and also found him straight up terrifying. He was cold, rational, calculating, and not at all decadent or aloof. And for some reason, Renner couldn't calculate his moves. He was a complete enigma to her. So in short, Renner wanted to deliver her best performance to meet the surely high expectations of the Sorcerer King himself. And so far, she hasn't been able to see through his facade. So much like Jerkniff, she interprets Ainz Ulgoren's behavior, and in her mind, just like Jerkniff, turns him into a kind of master strategist by suspecting that every move has 10 meta levels, and all fits into a great plan. Meanwhile, people like Remedios, who let's say have strengths other than intelligence, have more or less guessed by sheer dumb luck what Ainz's true motives and plans are. And to be fair, even those with a more personal connection to Ainz, like Albedo and Renner, have found cracks in his facade, while master strategists, for example Demiurge, Renner and Jerkniff, see Ainz as the true overlord he claims to be. Nevertheless, Ainz was wise to at least initially distance himself from Renner, because the more personal the connection is, the more likely it is that Renner will actually see through his facade. And with that said, now it's your turn. What do you think about Renner, her betrayal, and her opinions about Ainz, Albedo and the Grey Tomb? Let me know it down in the comment section. And with that said, please also check out my German channel, my fantasy channel, and if you don't want to listen to my voice or accent, but are still interested in the things I have to say, I have made an AI channel where I use AI voiceovers for my videos. And again, these channels are all linked down in the video description. Also, please check out my Patreon if you want to support me beyond just leaving a like or sub. And with that said, I say thank you very much for watching, thanks to my Patreons for supporting this channel, and as usual, I say my special thanks to Ada Daddy Ada, ASK, Bad Guy Ye, Bad Burrito 316, Bezer, Ben C, Brandon D, Chrissy, Crowley 0221, Sia, Crystal Prime, Dead Slime, Death is Mercy, Deathless Dragonlord, Demon Xenomorph 1987, Devin Downen, Ding Dong, Din Pep, Dragonlord Placido Saxophone, Duckwagon, Dunkler Krieger, Dystopia, Dystopia II, Enigmatic Unicorn, Feral Shivan, Guy with That Head, Hector Marino, Hoss, Huster, Jacob G, Jana B, Jason, J. Morris, Chromius, Kyle R, Lee K. Long, Legendarius, Lelouch V. Britannia with a Mustache, Lexus Fox, Lord Nishikian Rai, Lord Touch Me, Lofrazer, Merovec, Mr. Shoes, Mr. Tweaker, Michael R, Michael Y, Nope, Oh Hell No, Normal Toad, Oh Kill, Overlord General Gasper, Paddy Pantum, Personage, Ruru, Primus 11, Rhinomere, Kune Caracos P, Shergox's Daddy, Shadow Lightning Wolf, Shrine Keeper, Sir Axolotl, Super Tier Magic Batista Bomb, Supreme Cheese, Staris, Ted, Texas Deer, Diorg Warboss, Rock Ed Smasher, T.E. Wang, Vash Hawkeye, Vegito 27, Venture Fanatic, Wilhelm, Zinukai, and Sonagon. Thanks guys. Anyway, have a nice day, and I hope to see you all again soon on my next video.